Many of us spend years, sometimes decades, waiting for the right job offer, waiting for the right person, waiting for the universe to send us a sign. We tell ourselves that once the signal arrives, we'll finally act. We'll finally know. We'll finally be who we're meant to be. Carl Jung recognized this deep human yearning and confronted it with a powerful truth. The signal we seek is not coming from outside. It never was. In a world full of noise and distractions, we're conditioned to believe that authority lies out there in books, in gurus, in the stars, in fate. But Jung believed that the deepest authority, the only one that truly matters, is within. He once wrote, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." This single sentence holds the seed of transformation. Waiting for external validation is, in Jungian psychology, an evasion. It's a symptom of our disconnection from the self, the totality of our being, both conscious and unconscious. We disown this voice within because it doesn't always speak in the language of logic or social approval. It whispers truths that frighten us, nudge us, or call us two paths less traveled. So we ignore it, and wait. But the waiting becomes a kind of spiritual paralysis. When you say, "I'll change when life shows me a sign," you're unknowingly giving your power away. Jung saw this as a form of projection. We place on the world outside the responsibility to direct our lives, to give us meaning, to reveal purpose. In doing so, we avoid the sacred inner confrontation. And without that confrontation, there can be no integration, no real awakening. This doesn't mean the outer world has no value. Symbols, synchronicities, and meaningful coincidences can be part of our journey. But they are only mirrors, reflections of something already moving within. The danger is when we confuse the reflection for the source. Jung's work urges us to reverse this, to first listen deeply to the soul's whisper, then interpret what appears outside as confirmation, not initiation. If you're constantly looking outward, hoping for life to speak to you, stop and ask, what if it already has? What if it's speaking to you now, through this very discomfort, through the frustration, through the silence? What if your inner voice is only waiting for you to finally be still enough to hear it? Have you ever felt like life was trying to speak to you through silence, not words? Tell me in the comments, what signs have you been waiting for, and what's one truth you've been ignoring inside? If the true voice is within, why do we doubt it? Why do we silence it? The answer lies in how we were shaped. From early childhood, we are trained to defer to external voices, parents, teachers, religious authorities, culture. We're told what is good and bad, acceptable and unacceptable, worthy and unworthy. This conditioning doesn't just teach us how to survive socially, it shapes our inner world. Over time, we internalize the judgments of others and mistake them for our own thoughts. This is what Jung referred to as the creation of the persona, mask we wear to meet the expectations of society. The persona isn't false, it's functional. But when we become over-identified with it, we lose touch with the deeper self. We confuse the voice that wants approval with the voice that wants authenticity. Imagine a child who feels anger, curiosity, or deep sadness but is told, "Don't be dramatic, be a good boy," or "Girls don't act like that." That child learns that certain truths are dangerous. And so, the inner voice becomes suppressed not because it is wrong, but because it threatens to disrupt the carefully maintained illusion of who we're supposed to be. Jung believed that the repression of the inner voice creates what he called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we push away, deny, or disown. The longer we ignore the shadow, the louder it tries to speak through anxiety, depression, projection, rage, or apathy. These aren't failures, they are signals. They are the psyche's way of saying, you are out of alignment. Come back to yourself. But coming back is frightening. It means risking disapproval. It means questioning everything you've built your identity on. It means allowing discomfort to guide you. Most people would rather stay in the safety of the known even if it's painful than enter the unknown. Terrain of the soul, the inner voice is not always gentle. Sometimes it roars. Sometimes it disturbs your peace. Sometimes it demands that you burn down the false life you've spent years building. That's why most people ignore it. Because it doesn't always tell you what you want to hear, it tells you what you need to face. Yet every time you silence it, you fracture your integrity. You deepen the split between the life you show the world and the life you feel inside. And no amount of success, validation, or comfort can heal that divide, only truth can. Tell me below, what's one belief about yourself that you've inherited from others but never truly questioned? When did you first notice that your inner truth didn't match the role you were playing? There comes a moment in nearly every human life that Jung called a psychic rupture, breaking the illusion we've built around ourselves. It might come through loss, betrayal, burnout, illness, or the quiet desperation of a life that no longer fits. Whatever the form, it shakes the foundations of the false self and leaves you face to face with a terrifying question. Who am I, really? This moment is not a failure. It is the beginning. Jung understood that such crises aren't detours, they're initiations. They mark the end of the persona's dominance and the beginning of the individuation process. The journey towards psychological wholeness. But before anything is rebuilt, something must collapse. That collapse is what most people resist. and in resisting it, they prolong their suffering. At this stage, people often feel like they're going crazy. Their desires change. Their relationships feel strained. What once brought satisfaction now feels empty. It's as if the old version of them is dying, and in a way, it is. Jung described this process as a death and rebirth of the ego. Not the annihilation of the ego, but its realignment with the deeper self. The ego hates this process. It wants clarity, control, predictability, but the soul doesn't work in straight lines. It speaks in symbols, in dreams, in paradoxes, and so, the rupture feels like confusion, like being lost in a dark forest with no map. But that darkness is not the enemy. It is the sacred womb of transformation. Jung wrote, "In all chaos there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." This is where many turn to external signs, hoping for a shortcut out of the pain. They want someone to tell them what to do, who to be, how to fix it, but no one can do that for you, because the answer you seek isn't out there. It's within the very breakdown you're trying to avoid. If you find yourself in such a place where nothing makes sense anymore, and the old life feels like a lie, you are not broken. You are being broken open. What feels like a collapse is actually a sacred reordering. You are being called inward, called to listen, called to trust. Jung's message is clear. The soul will not be silenced forever. It will find a way to speak. And if you've ignored the whispers, it will speak through storms. That storm is not your enemy. It is your passage. Have you ever experienced a moment that felt like everything was falling apart, only to realize later that it was a turning point? Share it below. You never know who might need to hear your story. In the age of constant stimulation, silence feels threatening. We fill every quiet moment with noise, scrolling, talking, consuming because we've forgotten how to be still. But Jung understood something most of us resist. Silence is not emptiness. It's a door, a threshold. And behind that door lives the very voice we claim we can't find. People often say, "I don't know what I want," or "I can't hear my inner voice." But the truth is, they rarely give it the space to speak. The inner voice doesn't scream over the chaos. It waits patiently behind it. It speaks in images, sensations, dreams, and intuitions, not through the algorithms of the outer world, but through the symbols of the unconscious. This is why Jung placed such emphasis on active imagination and dream analysis. These are not mystical distractions. They are direct pathways to the self. In silence, the unconscious surfaces. In stillness, it begins to take shape. But we must make room for its room without judgment, without expectation. Have you ever sat in silence and felt restless, anxious, or even afraid? That's not because there's something wrong with you. It's because in silence, the repressed parts of yourself begin to rise. The pain you've buried, the truths you've denied, the longings you've ignored, they all start to stir. And the ego's instinct is to run. But Jung would say, stay. Stay with the discomfort. Stay with the not knowing, because just beneath it lies the thread that connects you to your true self. Most people never find that thread, not because it's hidden too well, but because they're unwilling to stop searching for answers out there long enough to feel what's within. To hear the inner voice, you must listen differently, not with your logical mind, but with your symbolic mind. You must become fluent in the language of the soul. That language may come as a recurring image, a line in a book that hits differently, a persistent dream you don't understand. These are not coincidences, they're clues, whispers from within. When you stop treating silence as a void and begin treating it as a vessel, something shifts. You no longer see stillness as absence, but as presence. Presence of the self, presence of the sacred, and slowly, you realize the voice you've been waiting for has been speaking all along. Let's try something together. Sit in silence for just 2 minutes after this video ends. No phone, no music, nothing. Then come back and comment. What showed up in that silence? What did you notice? One of the most profound insights Carl Jung gave to psychology and to humanity is this: the language of the soul is symbolic. If you expect your inner voice to speak like a rational coach giving step-by-step instructions, you will always miss it. It doesn't speak in linear logic. It speaks in archetypes, dreams, images, and myths. It speaks in the same way the unconscious speaks, through meaning, not explanation. This is why dreams are so important in Jungian work. They are not random. They are not meaningless noise from a sleeping brain. They are direct communications from the unconscious. But the ego, trained by reason and modernity, often dismisses them. We say, "That was weird," and move on. But Jung would say, don't move on, lean in. Ask yourself why your unconscious showed you that. Your psyche uses symbols to bypass the defenses of the rational mind. It doesn't tell you, you are denying your potential. It gives you a dream of a bird in a cage. It doesn't say, you're afraid of intimacy. It shows you standing at the edge of a cliff, afraid to leap. The message is there, but it requires interpretation, patience, and humility. This is also why Jung worked so deeply with myths and fairy tales. These stories endure across cultures and time because they reflect the universal experiences of the human soul. When you resonate with a myth or a character, when you see yourself in a hero, an exile, or a wounded child, that's not fantasy. That's recognition. That's the self speaking in a language older than words. To connect with your inner voice, you must become symbol literate. This doesn't mean you need a PhD in mythology. It means you need curiosity. When an image comes to you through a dream, a synchronicity, or a creative impulse, don't ignore it. Ask it what it wants to show you. Dialogue with it, draw it, write it, let it reveal what your conscious mind cannot yet grasp. This symbolic way of relating to yourself isn't just poetic, it's transformative, because symbols bypass the surface and strike the soul. They move you, they linger. They teach you not by telling you what to do, but by showing you what you are, and slowly, something awakens. You begin to feel that your life isn't just random, that your struggles, patterns, and longings are part of a deeper unfolding, that the signs you're looking for aren't signs of something, they are the something. And they're coming from inside. What's one dream, image, or symbol that's stuck with you maybe for years? Share it in the comments, even if you don't understand it. Sometimes the act of sharing unlocks meaning you didn't know was waiting. One of Jung's most powerful and unsettling ideas is this: much of what we perceive in others is actually a reflection of what we haven't accepted in ourselves. This psychological mechanism is called projection, and it's one of the main reasons we fail to hear our inner voice clearly. When something within us is too painful, too shameful, or simply too unknown, we push it out of consciousness. But the psyche doesn't erase, it reflects. So what we refuse to acknowledge inside, we begin to see out there. We project it onto people, situations, institutions, even deities. If you carry unresolved anger, you may see others as constantly aggressive. If you've buried your longing for freedom, you might find yourself resenting people who live boldly. If you haven't claimed your own power, you'll either worship or demonize those who embody it. This is not just theory. It's a defense mechanism. Projection allows us to avoid self-confrontation by turning inner conflict into outer drama. But here's the trap. When you're caught in projection, the world becomes distorted. You mistake your inner landscape for reality, and as a result, the true voice within your authentic guidance gets drowned out by reaction, blame, fear, or obsession. This is why Jung placed such importance on withdrawing projections. He believed that every time we reclaim a projection, we retrieve a piece of our soul. It's like pulling the scattered fragments of your being back home. And only when those fragments are returned can the inner voice speak with clarity. So how do you know when you're projecting? You're projecting when your emotional response is disproportionate to the situation. You're projecting when someone triggers you and you can't quite explain why. You're projecting when you find yourself idealizing or demonizing someone. You're projecting when you're stuck in a loop of judgment or obsession. In these moments, ask, what is this showing me about myself? What part of me have I denied that this person reflects back? This is not about blaming yourself, it's about empowering yourself. Because the moment you own what you projected, the world becomes less chaotic. The noise outside quiets, and suddenly, the voice inside becomes more audible. Think of a person or situation that deeply irritates or fascinates you. Now ask yourself, could this be a projection of something unresolved within? Share your reflection below. Someone else might recognize themselves in your insight. At the heart of Jung's psychology lies one of the most mysterious and powerful ideas he ever introduced. The self, not the ego, not your personality, not the mask you show the world, but the totality of who you are, both conscious and unconscious, both light and shadow. The self is the deep center of your being, and it's the very source of the voice within. Most of us confuse the ego with the self. We think we are our thoughts, our opinions, our preferences. But the ego is merely the surface. The self is the ocean beneath. And while the ego is shaped by culture, time, and identity, the self is archetypal, timeless. It is both you and more than you. Jung described the self as the guiding principle behind the individuation process, the long, often painful journey of becoming whole. And here's the paradox. The self already knows who you are meant to become. It carries the blueprint, but it allows you the freedom to discover it. It speaks through symbols, synchronicities, dreams, suffering, and intuition, but never with force. It invites, doesn't command. When you feel a quiet inner knowing, when you experience a deep peace in the middle of chaos, when you act in alignment with something larger than your ego's agenda, that's the self moving through you. That's the true voice rising. But here's the challenge. The ego often resists the self. It doesn't want to surrender control. It wants clarity, comfort, and recognition. The self, on the other hand, is concerned with integration, with uniting all parts of you, even the ones the ego has rejected. That means the self will lead you into the uncomfortable, into the unknown, into your fears, not to punish you, but to make you whole. This is why following your inner voice doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it demands that you leave relationships, face your deepest wounds, or walk away from everything familiar. But if the voice is truly coming from the self, it will not lead you to fragmentation. It will lead you to authenticity. The more you align with the self, the less you need validation. You begin to live from the inside out, not the outside in. And slowly, your life begins to reflect something rare, not perfection, but wholeness. Let's go deeper. Have you ever felt like something greater inside you was guiding your life quietly, steadily, even when everything felt chaotic? Describe that moment. What did it ask you to do? What did it help you realize? At some point on your journey inward, something strange begins to happen. You start noticing coincidences, but they don't feel random. A book appears at the exact moment you need it. A stranger says the very thing you've been struggling to express. A dream connects with something that happens the next day. Carl Jung called these meaningful coincidences synchronicities. For Jung, synchronicity was not superstition, it was psychology. He believed that when the psyche is aligned, the outer world begins to reflect the inner one. Events that would otherwise be disconnected start to organize themselves around your internal transformation. It's as if reality begins to echo the movement of your soul. This can feel magical. But Jung's view wasn't mystical in the way people often assume. He wasn't saying the universe is conspiring for you like a wish-granting machine. He was saying that the self, the center of your psyche, is connected to a deeper, archetypal order. And sometimes, that order breaks through the surface of everyday life to remind you, you are not alone in this process. When synchronicities appear, they are not signs from the universe in the way pop spirituality often frames it. They are reflections from within manifesting outside. They don't tell you what to do, they tell you to pay attention, to stay awake, to notice that your inner voice is starting to vibrate in harmony with the world around you. But beware. The ego loves to hijack sync. It wants to turn them into confirmation of its own agenda. It says, see, this means I should quit my job right now, or this proves they're my soulmate. That's not synchronicity. That's projection dressed up in mystical clothing. The real function of synchronicity is not to give you answers, but to deepen your dialogue with the unknown. It's an invitation to trust the unfolding without grasping, without forcing. When a synchronicity strikes, ask, what part of me is this reflecting? What am I being asked to notice, not out there, but in here? Sometimes a single moment of synchronicity can shift your entire trajectory, not because it tells you what to do, but because it confirms what the deeper voice already knew. It's like life whispering back, yes, keep going. Have you ever experienced a moment so strangely timed, so perfectly meaningful, that it felt like more than coincidence? Share it below. These moments connect us more than we realize. If the voice within is always speaking, why do so few people hear it? Why do most of us spend our lives searching for guidance, approval, or answers outside ourselves? Jung believed it wasn't because the inner voice is weak, it's because we are terrified of what it might say. The true voice within doesn't flatter your ego. It doesn't tell you what you want to hear. It tells you the truth, especially the truth you've been avoiding. And for many, that's too much. The voice might say, you've outgrown this life. Or, you've betrayed who you are to be loved. Or even, you're not the victim, you're the one who left yourself. Most people aren't ready for that kind of confrontation, so they distract themselves. They chase surface solutions. They numb. They scroll. They follow people who give them easy answers, quick fixes, or comforting lies. The noise becomes so loud that the subtle signal from within gets drowned out. Jung called this inauthentic living, and he saw it as one of the greatest tragedies of modern life. We build entire identities around who we think we should be until one day it collapses. And in that collapse, the voice we've been ignoring finally has space to speak. But here's the thing, the longer you avoid the voice, the more it pushes back, not out of cruelty but necessity. If ignored for too long, it will come through symptoms: anxiety, depression, apathy, or destructive patterns. These aren't random, they're how the soul forces its way back into consciousness. They are not punishments, they are invitations. This is why inner work matters. Journaling, dream work, solitude, honest conversations, shadow integration. These aren't luxuries, they're survival tools for the soul. They clear space, they quiet the noise, they help you build the courage to finally hear what's been waiting for you all along. But hearing the voice is only the beginning. The real challenge is trusting it, especially when it asks you to risk comfort for authenticity, approval for integrity, certainty for truth. Most people won't choose that path, but you can. And if you do, everything begins to change, not instantly, not easily, but profoundly. If you're being honest, what has your inner voice been trying to tell you lately that you've been afraid to face? Write it down, Evan. Just a sentence, and share it below. Sometimes truth only begins to heal when it's named. Once you begin to hear the voice within, a new question arises, one that can feel even more daunting than the silence that came before. Can I trust it? Jung would say, not instantly, not blindly, but trust is built through relationship, through listening, through response. Think of it like this. The inner voice is like a person who's been ignored for years. At first, they speak quietly, then, maybe they stop speaking altogether. But if you begin to turn toward them truly, consistently, they start to open up. They start to trust you back. That's how the dialogue begins. You don't earn the voice's trust with intensity, you earn it with presence. This is where many people give up. They expect clarity to come fully formed, like lightning. But the inner voice rarely gives you the whole map. It gives you the next step and then it waits. Will you take it? Or will you ask for 10 more signs before you move? Jung emphasized experiential integration. It's not enough to know. You must act internally. That might mean having an honest conversation you've avoided, setting a boundary, quitting something that is killing your spirit, or simply choosing a different thought in a moment of fear. These may seem like small acts, but to the psyche, they're monumental. Every time you respond to the voice within, you reinforce the bridge between ego and self, and over time, that bridge becomes strong enough to carry real transformation. But here's the hard truth. This path will not always feel good. The ego will fight it. Your conditioning will resist. People around you may not understand. That's part of the work. Trust doesn't mean absence of fear, it means moving with fear, because something deeper is guiding you now. And as that trust grows, so does your sense of inner authority. You no longer ask life to give you signs. You'll become the sign. You'll begin to embody what you once searched for. Your posture changes, your choices sharpen, your energy deepens. Not because you have all the answers, but because you're finally aligned with the question that matters most. What is true for me, right now? What's one small inner impulse you've ignored, something you knew you needed to do, but dismissed? What would happen if you took that step this week? Let's start small, write it in the comments, and commit to trying. Following the inner voice means embracing uncertainty. Carl Jung emphasized that the path of individuation, the journey to wholeness, is not about control or certainty. It's about courage. When you listen to your inner voice, you step into the unknown. There are no guarantees, no clear roadmap. The ego hates this because it craves safety, but the self calls you to a deeper trust in the unfolding process, in the wisdom of your soul, in life itself. This courage isn't reckless bravado. It's a quiet, steady resolve to stay with discomfort and mystery, to say yes to what calls you even when it scares you, to walk forward without knowing exactly where the path leads. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, but becoming who you are is a sacred task. It requires breaking free from the expectations of others and the false narratives you've believed about yourself." The voice within may ask you to leave behind familiar relationships, jobs, or beliefs. It may challenge your identity, but these losses are opening space for new life to emerge. When you lean into the unknown, something remarkable happens. You begin to discover a resilience you didn't know you had. You find a deeper sense of peace, not because life is easier, but because you are finally living in alignment. This is the paradox of the inner voice. It may lead you through darkness, but it also leads you into light. The journey is the destination. What's one fear or uncertainty that has stopped you from listening to your inner voice? What's one small way you could face that fear this week? Share your thoughts below. It's a powerful step just to name it. After all the waiting, all the searching, all the fear and doubt, here's the ultimate truth. Carl Jung reveals, you are the sign you've been waiting for. The true voice isn't outside. It's inside, alive, waiting, ready. No external event, person, or cosmic signal can replace your own authority. The power to change your life, to find meaning, to awaken your true self, rests within you. The voice inside is the source of your courage, your wisdom, and your authenticity. This realization can be freeing and terrifying. It means the responsibility is yours. No more blaming fate, the stars, or other people. No more waiting. The power is in your hands right now. But with that power comes freedom. Freedom to listen, freedom to act, freedom to be imperfect, freedom to grow. Jung's entire work was an invitation to stop looking outward for what can only be found inward, to trust yourself enough to become your own guide, your own healer, your own sign. Now, the question is, will you listen? Will you answer? If you've stayed with this message until the end, you're already taking that first step. The voice within is stirring. It's calling. If you made it here, comment below the word awakened to show you're ready to listen to your inner voice. Then, don't stop now. Click on the next video that just appeared and keep deepening your journey of self-discovery. Your true voice is waiting.